Right, so I guess we'll be starting now at 6:30. So thank you all for taking the time to join the webinar today. I know that we have busy weekends, but the topic today is really interesting, driving organizational agility and resilience during a period of high global business uncertainty, a case study of enterprise-wide digital transformation of Arcadis, a global design and consultancy for natural and built assets. This session is delivered by one of our senior alumni, Tim Shelton. I'm not sure if you've met Tim before, but just a brief introduction about Tim. Tim is an industry and academically acclaimed strategist, a digital enabler and change leader, transforming and driving business excellence and innovation through industry, global enterprise, and major capital programs. He has 18 years of experience gained through working in both client-side and consultant roles in the UK and the Middle East. We have attached Tim's biography in the email that we've sent, so you can learn more about Tim, from his biography. And also, if you have any questions, we will take them at the end of the session. So just some rules, you will all be muted. So if you have any questions, please type them in the chat box, or if you're unable, perhaps you can send us an email and Tim will be happy to answer all your questions. You can send them directly to me, to my email, which is hiba.abbasi, ABBASI @manchester.ac.uk, or you can email alumni@manchester.ac.ae. Tim will be taking the questions at the end of the session. And that's it. So I'm going to give it over to Tim now. So thank you all for joining again, and I hope you enjoy the session. It's all yours, Tim. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Hiba. Thanks for the introduction. Hello to everybody. Obviously, we're under unfortunate circumstances. I would have liked to have met you all in person this evening. But given the government mandate by the KHDA, we're obviously abiding by that and doing things a little bit differently. So, as Hiba said, feel free to ask any questions within the conversation panel, and I'm happy to answer those at the end. So Hiba's just done a small introduction to myself. I don't think there's any need to elaborate on that. I'd like to start on a health and safety moment, but for some reason my presentation's not moving. Hang on, bear with me a second. Okay, right, here we go. So obviously it's unprecedented times in terms of the outbreak of coronavirus that we're all having now to respond to. I just thought I'd put some words of advice there from the World Health Organization. They do have some comprehensive advice on their website. So if any of you are feeling particularly concerned, it's probably worth visiting that. But I think obviously one of the key things we can do is just good hygiene. Ultimately, wash your hands a lot. Wash them with alcohol-based hand rub or soap and water if you can. That's not only to prevent ourselves getting sick, but for preventing others from getting sick as well. If we're coughing and sneezing, if we're doing that, then throw away tissues after every cough and sneeze, and just make sure that we're washing our hands afterwards as well. You can't wash your hands too much. I think that's the message. So I'm Tim Shelton. As Hiba outlined, I lead digital transformation and innovation for Arcadis in the Middle East. I'll go into a little bit more about what Arcadis do, a little bit more about our organisation later in the presentation, as that's what the case study is built on. But I have 17 years of industry experience, 11 years here in the Middle East within strategic and PMO roles for clients and consultants. I'm the global lead for digital program management, which is essentially digitizing our program management proposition using the latest tools and technology in the market. And also obviously have an MBA from the University of Manchester. I was part of the school of class of 2013, I believe it was. I do a lot of this kind of stuff. I do speak to industry about the impact of digital transformation within my industry, which is construction real estate, and the role of industry in supporting educational institutions in nurturing the talent and developing the workforce of the future. So developing healthy collaborations with education in order to bring on the next industry professionals, again, which I'll go on to a little bit later in the presentation. So we live in an ever-changing world. The acceleration of change globally has never been as quick as it is today, and will probably carry on increasing at a rate which is also unprecedented. These are some of the key mega trends that we can see impacting global business, specific to our industry, but I think these are also transient across industries as well. So it's, be that increasing urbanization, significant demographic change and migration, climate change, digitalization, globalization shifts, etc., etc. These are all trends impacting us, impacting the businesses in which we work, and ultimately is driving a focus on business resilience and sustainable business models in order for us to be successful in the future. Probably one of the biggest impacts that we're facing, putting aside the current global issues, which are shocking markets, is Industry 4.0 and the significant opportunities that technology and the connection of data presents to us as businesses. As I said, never has it been such an unprecedented time in which the rate of technologies and technological adoption, and also the rate at which they are disrupting industries, has been as profound. I think it offers a great opportunity for us, both as individuals, but in businesses. But there are some clear advantages of harboring that and using technology in a structured way in order to drive change throughout our organisations. I thought I'd put that on there. That's basically outlining that technologies now are having a significant disruptive impact on businesses. I think the statement there on the right-hand side just says it all in terms of the Standard & Poor life of an organisation now. That they used to be above 50 years, it's now down to less than 20. What we're finding is innovations are making their way into businesses a lot quicker than they used to, and completely changing the face of businesses and the life of those businesses. So as a forward-thinking, sustainable business, we have to be one step ahead of the game and understand how those technologies are going to impact us and our customers. A little bit closer to home, these are the sort of trends that we have to deal with in terms of the economic drivers, and specifically for businesses in the Middle East, a lot of the economic strength and economic activity is founded on the price of oil. We're aware, obviously, that economies within the region are trying to decouple their economies from oil, but certainly within the short to medium term, it's going to be business as usual in terms of the trends that we have to accommodate in terms of that price of oil. And you can see some of the shocks and some of the fluctuations that are caused by that volatility in oil price. Why did I put that on there? Well, it's basically to show that, as contemporary businesses working in a specific region, we have to have this resiliency and agility to move and to pivot our existing value propositions. And that can be done primarily through the leveraging of new technology and new business models, which is ultimately what this presentation is going to be focused on. One thing I'd also like to say, and this is quite an interesting piece around skills and skills for the future. Now, the average skill of a half-life, and the half-life is basically the period of time in which it takes a skill to be 50% as effective in our chosen industries. It used to be 30 years. Which basically meant that as a graduate, as an individual, you could enter an industry or a business organization and pretty much be confident that you would have a job for life based upon the skills acquired during your traditional education. That's now gone to what is predicted to be 5 years, which basically means that we as individuals within business have to be continually learning, but also it impacts businesses in terms of the skill sets that we need to bring into our industries. No longer is it about hard vocational skills, it's about flexible skills that can be used to evolve over time. And that one's also interesting. So the information came from Forbes, and their source was the Foundations for Young Australians. They actually predict that the average individual moving forward will have 17 jobs, or could have up to 17 jobs within 5 different industries, which is, quite an impactful statistic, and something that really strikes upon the future of skills and how they're going to be cross-sector, cross-industries. And that's something that as employers and organisations we have to be very, very aware of. So moving on, what are the 10 skills that you need for the future of work? And again, this was published by Forbes. What you'll see there is less hard skills, less vocational skills, and more of the softer skills, those skills that will set up that individual resiliency for career progression. So it's the creativity, it's the emotional intelligence, critical thinking, active learning with a growth mindset, etc. And I think as MBA graduates, as MBA undergrads, as alumni, we are well positioned and should take heart from the fact that an MBA through Manchester Business School will absolutely set us up for this moving forward. And then lastly, obviously, we have to acknowledge there are significant shocks to the way that our economies, mainly due to the fact that our economies are so globally connected now. And this is obviously a statistic that's come out over the last week, showing the decrease in the value of stock markets from around the world because of the uncertainty and because of the risk and the perceived threat from coronavirus. And you can see some of the stats there that are predicted in terms of losses, etc. All very doom and gloom, obviously, but something that we have to respond to. Now, how do we respond as businesses? How do we respond to those threats? It's about, again, being resilient. It's about being agile. It's about repositioning our value propositions. It's understanding more about our markets, how we can be quick-footed, how we can be more effective in terms of our operations and more streamlined. And that's basically what I want to talk to you about today. Before that, though, it's worth just visiting a definition of both agility and resilience. So it's about moving quickly and adapting. It's the being nimble within our markets, and also resilience, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties and toughness. These are just standard definitions I got from the internet, but I think strike at the very heart of the issue that I'm trying to drive some awareness around, and how we can prepare ourselves moving forward. So in terms of what the problem statement is, then. This is how I've articulated it. How can we protect ourselves from continued market volatility and continue to deliver new value-added products and services to our customers that are based on technologically focused business models? And that's what I'm going to be presenting today in terms of a case study specific to my company, which is Arcadis, and how we are beginning to implement a structured digital transformation in order to be both resilient and agile. So who are Arcadis? We're a design and consultancy for natural and built assets. What does that mean? Well, we are architects, we're engineers, we're program managers, project managers, cost and commercial managers, basically an end-to-end service in planning, delivery, and maintaining built and natural assets. And our strapline now is designing a world for the next generation. We are very much a forward-thinking business. We aim to become a digital frontrunner in our industry, and that's what I'm going to be showing you over the next half an hour or so in terms of our approach. Who are we? Where are we? We are a global company. We have 27,000 employees. We operate in over 350 offices in 40 countries. We're quite old. We've been around quite a while, since 1888. We are headquartered in Amsterdam, and our primary business that we launched back in the 1800s was around resiliency, actually, in terms of flood defences. Obviously, that goes without saying, being a company based in the Netherlands. But we are truly global. As I said, we operate in many different countries. We encounter many different challenges in the natural and built asset space. And I think, we are well positioned now with our approach around digital. And that's, again, what I'm going to be explaining a little bit more about today. It all starts, in terms of a transformation and structured transformation, it all starts with setting a vision. So this is our CEO, Peter Oosterveer. He basically explained that we needed a North Star, something that is going to align our workforce and really drive our transformation, our multi-year transformation over the next 10 years or so. And it's acknowledgement of the mega trends. It's about how people's lives are changing, how we understand those as a business, and how we then position our products and the evolution of our products moving forward. We're aware that in our industry, there's some of the first changes that we're seeing in terms of data gathering and computational design. We understand that actually the asset life cycle that we operate in is becoming increasingly digitized, and we want to drag in human insights into that digital asset life cycle in order for us to evolve our products in the most profound way. I think I'll probably move on to the next slide, which probably explains that a little bit more effectively. Our vision statement, as I said, is around improving the quality of life. That's ultimately what we intend to do. We operate within an infinity loop, and as you can see from the left-hand side, in terms of the asset life cycle, we position our products in terms of how we create, operate, redefine, and plan assets. Now, we're increasingly aware of the fact that that is becoming more digitized, more productized, and the data which feeds that is becoming more structured, and we'll be able to offer more value-added insights through integrating, comparing those data sets. At the same time, we are learning a lot about the human experience, and that's mainly due to the automated solutions and digital products that operate within the human experience space, such as your Instagrams, your Ubers, etc., where we are continually learning about how our customers interact with the assets that we create, operate, redefine, and plan. So ultimately, there's data passing in two different directions, and that's really the fundamental part of our vision. We're also aware that actually we need to focus in on specific themes to our vision, and you can see those at the bottom. So it's things like mobility, so how we're able to design and orchestrate enabling infrastructure and transportation for the networks of the future. It's about resiliency, places, etc. So really trying to hinge our vision on three main focus areas. In terms of our digital transformation, we like to see it through the lens of what we call four digital realities. In customer experience, data, ecosystems, and platforms, all of which are interdependent but also self-reinforcing. So we can't look at these in isolation, we have to look at them together. Starting with the first one, customer experience. This is about creating frictionless digital experience for our clients and their customers. So how do we get our clients more integrated with the solutions we offer through a digital type interface? And also about how we can use new technologies to anticipate our future customer needs. And with the data out there, that's becoming a lot more compelling. In terms of the data, this is probably what sits in the center of all of it. Actually, it's all about the data. So it's about creating the infrastructure, the processes. We need to be collecting structured data that we can start to integrate and overlay with each other in order to unlock those value-added insights. And it's about transitioning from descriptive data, which ultimately, this is data from a backwards look that we can begin to infer insights from, to more predictive and prescriptive type insights based upon that data. So entering into the machine learning and AI space. Ultimately, it's around four things with data. We capture it, we validate it, we analyze it, and we communicate that data. And ultimately, these are the four things that we need to focus on in terms of developing the capabilities to really unlock those value-added insights. It's about ecosystems, so we can't do this on our own. We have to strategically partner with those best players in the market. who are aligned to our vision, and who can bring supplementary solutions that really strike to a definitive problem to be solved, aligned to our 4 themes. And it's all about, you know, how we actively participate in those digital ecosystems. Where we want to be is be the orchestrator. It's not necessarily get involved in all the technical delivery of these solutions, but really be the owner of the data at the end of the day, because being the owner of a large bank of structured data is ultimately going to give you all those insights and allow you to solve further problems in the future. And lastly, platforms. So platforms are ultimately how the data, how we capture, how we source, how we capture, how we validate, analyze, and communicate our data. This enables us to unlock those insights, as I was talking about. For us, it's things like scaling the use of existing platforms like building information modeling to enable us to future-proof our business. So our digital transformation at Arcadis is split into 3 time horizons, all of which operate in parallel, but all operate over various different timescales. So in terms of our immediate priorities, it's about scaling existing capabilities, but through an automated means. We're doing that through using existing technologies and selling the outputs through our traditional business models. So that's really strikes at the left-hand side of that infinity loop that I was talking about, where we digitize the asset lifecycle. And that's a time scale that we see of lasting up to 3 years. We started 2 years ago, so we're nearly there in terms of the scaling. Secondly, we call it Horizon 2 or incubation. So again, we use existing technologies, but this time we use new business models in order to throw new value propositions out to the market. This may be delivering our service on a subscription-based model, so actually delivering our services through a platform-based model. It could be piecing together new technologies to actually bring together a new platform to that client, where the client is active in interacting with that platform. But ultimately, we see that as lasting up to 7 years. And then lastly, Horizon 3 is about exploring. This is the experimental stuff. This is the exciting stuff. This is taking new technologies and selling it in new ways. So using new business models, and we believe that time horizon will last anything up to 12 years time. So really frontier stuff, where we begin to unlock the investment that we've made into the business for our digital transformation. So what is a business model? We need to look very carefully at these if we're to genuinely evolve our business. So it's ultimately how we describe the rationale for how an organization creates, delivers, and captures value. Or simply put, a business model is the way that we make money using our resources, capability, and processes that we deliver to our clients. I just want to focus a little bit of time on business models, because I think it's key to this particular presentation. And it's been key on really what's driving our transformation as we begin to align our new value propositions to the themes of our Vision 2030. So there are 4 fundamentals of all sustainable and successful business models. So that's viability. So are the commercially does it work? Feasibility and desirability, and I'm going to go through each one of these in a little bit more detail as we move on. For the eagle-eyed amongst you, you realise that there isn't the 4th one there, and that will become clearer as I move on. So desirability, really we need to focus in on any new value proposition, or when we're auditing our current business model. Do our solutions actually relieve a true customer pain point? We may believe that actually, this solution is groundbreaking, but unless it solves a particular pain point, then it's not going to get the traction that we want it to within the market. Similarly, do we create a customer gain? Do we add value for that particular customer? A lot of the time we have to position these products in a way that enables our customers to actually enable them to accomplish a job to be done, but in a more efficient and value-added way. How does it make their lives easier? So that's really the key around desirability. If that's not present, then the chances are that we shouldn't invest in that particular capability. So feasibility, can we actually do this? So, you know, once we've thought of an idea or value proposition, do we actually have the technology, the skill sets, the expertise, the resources, etc., to actually piece together that solution? Do we need, and it strikes at the heart of the make, buy, or partner decision, which is obviously a key part of the MBA that we look at. I think it's in the managerial economics module. So where are the key resources or the key activities to deliver the right solution? Are they missing? Can we make them? Do we buy them? Do we partner? So that's really where the ecosystem piece falls in. So, you know, we need to really start opening our eyes to the market and listening to the market about where those capabilities sit, and whether we believe actually we need to have a structured partnership, or whether we can self-perform, etc. On the right hand side there, you can see at the bottom of the slide, there's an Arcadis digital menu. Very cleverly put it together in terms of a periodic table, in terms of the various different parts of data. So gather, generate, analyze, etc. But each one of those boxes there is a specific capability that we have within Arcadis, that we know that if we start to piece together, we can start unlocking some of that additional value and those additional value propositions in these new business models. And then viability. Should we actually do this? So we've got the idea, we know how we're going to deliver it to the market, we know who our key partners are, but how are we actually going to monetize this? How are we going to make money? How are we going to cut costs with this? How do we streamline our operations? How do we reduce our cost to serve? And does our solution offer a sustainable return? And how do we justify that investment? So really making that business case. We need to generate a profit. So ultimately, it should be sustainable and focus on the creation of long-term value. Now, sometimes we understand that our value propositions may only have a short shelf life in terms of the way that the technology is evolving at such a rate. So how, do we position this as a key value proposition, or do we discard it, given the fact that it might only have a shelf life of 2 to 3 years? These are the sort of questions that we need to be asking ourselves. And then lastly, adaptability, the fourth fundamental. So does it fit? Does the solution balance the internal and external factors that we are under as a business in order to create that value? So we really have to start looking at the competitive landscape, technology trends, regulatory trends, social and cultural trends, and those macroeconomic forces. And this ultimately is what will drive resiliency as we move forward. We have to be aware that things are changing all the time. If we don't anticipate that, again, the shelf life of that particular value proposition and the return in which we get from that investment might drastically reduce. So we have to have our eye on all the pieces of the pie, so to speak. How do we start really testing and put together a structure around driving those 4 fundamentals of the business model? Well, we use, some of you may already be aware of this particular template, but we use a business model canvas, which really starts to articulate and structure our thinking around the 4 fundamentals of those business models, so we can begin to properly structure that value proposition. So as you can see there, it strikes at some of the key partners, the key activities, the resources, see the key value proposition in the center, the customer relationships, the channels of which we're going to deliver that solution to the market, the customer segments. So are we selling it to one particular component of a customer segment, or is it multi-segment? At the bottom, we look at cost structure and the revenue stream. So, that begins to strike at the viability argument. And you can begin to overlay the various different components of the business model to that model canvas. So the left-hand side, the partners, the activities, the resources, that strikes the feasibility mechanism. To the right-hand side, the value propositions, the customer relations, how we're going to take that to market, the customer segments. That's the desirability element, which is really client-driven. And then lastly, at the bottom, in terms of the cost structure and revenue streams, as I said, that really just drives the viability part of the business model. So that's really a structured way of beginning to collect ideas and how we position that particular idea and feed it through the business model. So what we're finding actually is there are different epicenters for innovation when we start looking at the business model canvas. So in a Horizon 1, which is around existing technologies and existing business models, we begin to see that actually the propositions are more likely to be resource driven, where innovations are sourced from our existing capability, resources and partnerships, where we actually look to expand or transform that business model. And they could be finance driven. So ultimately they could be influenced mainly by our cost structures. So the value proposition may be purely down to reducing our cost to serve, so we become more competitive in the market. And if there's a technology or a solution that allows us to do that, that obviously is a financial driven business model decision. Horizon 2, which is about existing technologies but new business models, we can see that that's really being driven by the customer, so the right hand side of the business model canvas. So innovations based upon clients' needs. Now we use a process called design thinking, which is a methodology that we really get to properly understand and articulate that client pain point and the sort of gains and the jobs to be done that we can then use to drive that particular value proposition. It may also be offer driven as well. So innovations that start with creation of a new value proposition that clients didn't actually preconceive. Now, obviously the key example of that is Henry Ford. The fact that if they'd asked the customers what they wanted at the time of the invention of the car, they probably would have said a faster horse. So these are not particularly they aren't value propositions that are conceived or understood by the client, but ones that are very much driven by the offer that we can source from that business model. And then lastly, the disruptive innovation will come from multi epicenters. So this could come from all over the business model, but that's the very fact that they are disruptive. And they can change markets, they can change incumbents. These are the sort of, if we go back to that chart that I showed at the beginning of the presentation, it's about those technologies that really disrupt and reduce the life of a lot of those incumbent industry players. So this is all great, but how do we actually find ways to accelerate the next value creation, and how do we accelerate the utilization of new business models? We do this through a number of different ways at Arcadis. The first one I'd like to go over is how we source innovation externally. So that's actually bringing new ideas from outside of the organization and then mentoring those ideas in a way that then strikes at the heart of a new business model for us. And the way that we've done this is through a collaboration with Techstars. Techstars are essentially an innovation incubator. They're a global network of startups, and we've put that as the city of the 2030 accelerator. So under the vision and the 4 themes that I mentioned previously, we invite startups to come forward with solutions that supplement our existing capabilities that really talk to problems to be solved over the next 10 years. So we support, accelerate, and invest in 10 software-based startups with disruptive ideas to improve the quality of life across the following themes. As I said, those are the 4 themes that I mentioned earlier: mobility, resilience, resources, and places. So what are Techstars by the numbers? Well, it's clear to see that they are a significantly attractive proposition for us at the moment. Multi-portfolios, multiple companies, lots of finance raised, and 85% of those startups are actually active or acquired. So it's a very, very high success rate. driven by an established and structured way to evolve those early value propositions. In terms of how we structure the program, we run this every year, and it's a 3-year program. So the 10 startups have 3 months in Amsterdam. As I said, they're based upon smart city solutions. We have an option to invest up to $120,000 within those particular startups. So we have a vested interest in evolving that capability. Those startups have access to our worldwide network and through the Techstars network. We begin to fast track those partnership opportunities. So where we see a particular route to revenue for that startup, and that could be anywhere globally, we will position that startup with the appropriate business lead within that region in order to drive that value proposition for clients. The most successful ones are those times when that particular startup talks to a specific problem to be solved within that client. So we've had more than 350 applicants to this particular program from 47 countries. We accepted 10, so we were extremely fortunate in the fact that we had a large bank of very, very good ideas. Obviously, the difficulty was in selecting those 10 that we thought would have the best impact, and we're already beginning to see that actually, in terms of the monthly revenue rates, these are often accelerated 3 times through their association with Arcadis. We've been able to raise $500,000 through our partnership with Techstars to evolve these startups, with another $500,000 since. And these are our class of 2019 startups. Those of you who've got an interest, if you just type into Google what these startups do, obviously it will give you a bit more of an idea as to the innovation or the innovative ideas that we're trying to feed through our business. Some of these have been extremely successful. I think it's key to say that these startups are at various different levels of maturity through their life cycle, and that's the whole idea. It's about spreading the risk of investment between those startups. We also source innovation internally. So in addition to the Techstars initiative, we have a platform where all 27,000 of our staff are able to put forward an idea, which we then look at in terms of a governed assessment criteria, and that idea then will then get invested at various different levels, provided it meets the specific criteria of that assessment. And we have what's called an innovation funnel, and we capture ideas through that, from the left-hand side of the pipeline. So these could come from employees, they could come from current clients, strategic pursuits, some market trends, our community of practices that we hold within our organisation. In terms of actually how we capture those, there are various different channels. Here in the Middle East, we have a platform called Switch On, which is essentially a SharePoint portal where people enter their ideas and they answer very basic high-level questions around scalability, benefit to clients, benefit to Arcadis, so we can then begin to assess those using a governance panel here in region. So of those more scalable ideas and those ones that we think will have the most business impact, we then begin to articulate those through using a lean canvas. So this is very much based upon the product, and as we begin to see more potential from those value propositions from the lean canvas, we then model that through the business model canvas, as I've just spoken about. So really actually beginning to see how we could take that product to market, the specific problem to be solved, who we're going to partner with. So ultimately, I guess you could argue it's a business case. We then look at various different levels of investment. So we have kind of a tiered investment model. So if we see that particular value proposition really only benefits a region, that's where it will stay, and the region will be expected to invest in it. If that idea actually has global scalability, then that's when our global business will get involved, and our new digital business, which I'll come on to in a little bit further, a little bit more detail in a second. But ultimately, they will begin to invest in that as well if they see that scalability and potential. Also want to talk a little bit about our people, and ultimately none of this could be achieved unless our workforce is properly aligned to that vision and they are acquiring the skills necessary in order to drive our transformation. So we have an internal training program called Expedition DNA, where we really try and drive the digitalization of our business through the culture of our business. In terms of the key goals of the training program, it's about creating a digital innovative mindset with Arcadis, so we begin to have the same conversations. We begin to develop digital capabilities and innovation savviness, we like to call it, across all levels of our organization. And we build a global digital community and movement. So if we align ourselves in terms of the way in which we are going to respond as a business, those conversations will become more prevalent and ideas will become more structured behind that vision. That's where we believe it can take us. The additional benefits are that it will drive client engagement as we begin to really start to drive new value propositions that make their lives easier. It's about employee engagement, and we've actually seen the retention has gone up, and we can position our brand in a lot more successful way as we begin to actually play out our vision that we are putting out to the market. We're fortunate in the fact that we have one of our key investors in our business, or our majority investor, is something called the Loving Clan Foundation. And they are purely in place to promote the interest of Arcadians in shaping the future and continuity of the enterprise. They're ultimately they're a safeguarding of our business to really help Arcadians grow and reach their potential. Ultimately, what Loving Clan Foundation do is they reinvest all of the dividends that they get as a shareholder back into the business. And essentially they are purely based upon investments made in people and upskilling our people to really drive the transformation of our organization and to drive that agility and resiliency that comes with it. In terms of the return on investment of the program, and it's probably a good point in the presentation to actually say how the program works. It's a online learning platform. Ultimately, it has various different modules in it, and it takes usually between about 15 and 20 hours for each individual to complete. What it also allows them to do is once you've done that particular part of the program, you can then apply for what we call an expedition, where you go to an off-site week-long session. We've had 6 of those, and those have been in Belgium, where you really get a deep dive on one of the 4 realities that I mentioned earlier in the presentation. The return on investment that we're getting from this is we have that critical mass of employee engagement that's really been achieved. We have clarity in our digital objectives, and as I said, that common language to really kickstart those conversations and those networks between people, which is so often ignored, I think, by a lot of organizations, particularly those that operate globally. You know, what we find is there's pockets of capability around the world, and those communities need to talk to each other so we're not duplicating effort, and really we begin to evolve that capability. We are beginning to win more work, and work that involves digital. Design thinking as a process has enabled better interactions with our clients and more quality interactions. As I said, we have a high retention rate of program alumni, so that's up at 94%, which is quite phenomenal. We have the digitalization of global solutions, which has been accelerated, so that's really automating our current solutions we offer in the market and starting to drive some new business model thinking around that. Excuse me. So the experience, this is a week-long course in Belgium. It's fun, it's interactive, it drives at networking with your colleagues from around the world. Our senior leadership are often present at those sessions, and really it tries to drive that thinking around design thinking, around those business models, and ultimately what is most important is the ripple effect. The ripple effect is something that we put a large emphasis on is how do we take those learnings from that week-long course and the Basecamp program into our regional solutions. So we get our individuals and alumni from that program to make commitments that they will then drive within regions to evolve our products and service offerings. In terms of the numbers, we have currently 11,500 participants within the Basecamp or the online component of the training, and we have 413 participants that were put through the week-long deep dive course from nearly 4,000 applicants. So, you know, we're very proud of the way it's really started to bite within our business. As I said, the ripple is most important. These are just 3 alumni from the program, or 3 regional alumni from the program, some of which have really been trying to drive that thought leadership through developing communities of practice that have a global reach. Some are looking at how they can reduce and streamline current processes around talent acquisition, and some are looking at how we can train individuals in new tools and techniques. These are just 3 individuals with, you know, 3 different focus areas of probably 25, 30 individuals from the region. So really trying to drive and accelerate our digital transformation. What's really important for me as well is around attracting our future workforce. Now, in the construction real estate, the numbers aren't looking particularly bright right now. 22% of industry professionals are over the age of 50. Now, that obviously presents a huge potential risk of brain drain that we have to mitigate. We don't have a particularly great industry appeal, so 16 to 19-year-olds within that career advancement stage of their educational journey rate the industry as 4.2 out of 10 in terms of industry appeal. Now, we really have to change that around, and I think what digital disruption is doing to our industry is giving us a really profound and compelling opportunity to do that. And then lastly, only 1% of the employees that operate within our industry have active apprenticeship programs. Now, obviously, this is something that we really need to turn around. The way in which we're trying to do it in region within Arcadis is look to the future. Who are the next generation of industry professionals? How do we motivate them, and how do we acquire those skills and learn from those individuals? It's not just about reinventing ourselves as a business, it's about how we look at those new individuals and what they're going to bring into our business and how we learn from them. So this is Marco. Marco underwent a 4-month digital internship program. He actually came from outside of industry. We took him through our Basecamp and expedition training. We asked him to upskill in automated solutions such as Microsoft Power BI and Power Apps. And we actually engaged him on live engagements to drive value through those engagements using the skills and experience he's taken from that training program. We recently turned that into a permanent position for him. So he is now a permanent employee in our regional business, but someone that we probably had not considered prior to our digital transformation journey. We also run structured work experience programs. So these are 5 students, 5 16-year-old students from a local school, where we began to partner with key education institutions and private industry stakeholders to drive a structured work experience program that really, again, in the same way the digital internship does, really tries to utilize current thinking around new digital technologies, the utilization of new tools, all around and focused around the delivery of the ecosystem classroom as a vocational project or theme for them. That was extremely successful, and something which it was actually acknowledged that the skills that are being bred by schools are actually probably more relevant than a lot of the skills that we have in our existing organisation. So really threw the spotlight on that workforce for the future. And then lastly, going the other end of the spectrum, this is actually a presentation I did at my son's school when he was 5, really starting to make them aware of what the industry is, what our contribution to to global economies are, some of the misconceptions about the industry, and some of the exciting things that begin to happen. So really starting to engage with young kids in order to get them to think differently about a career in construction. I think I used a particular example around how construction or how modular construction is like building Lego, which obviously resonated with a 5-year-old. And also, we're beginning to put new and agile and resilient business models in action through our new digital business. So we're aware that actually as a 27,003 billion euro revenue business, we need to be very agile when it comes to that Horizon 2 and Horizon 3 type digital transformation that I was talking to earlier. And how do we best effectively do that? How do we give that entity the most opportunity to reinvest and to experiment in those new technologies and solutions? And that's this is our new digital business called Arcadis Gen. They are wholly owned by the parent, but very autonomous when it comes to what they do and how they drive value through those new solutions. So this is taken from a snapshot from the website that was released only a couple of weeks ago. What Arcadis Gen wants to do is be bold, disruptive, and experimental, the pioneers of what's possible. Now, within our legacy cost structure of our business, we are quite constrained in terms of how we do that. Within the new business model, which is more agile, we can better experiment with those solutions. We can push something that is more compelling out to the market. And we do that through various different themes, through new tools around planning assets, new tools that help deliver assets, and new tools that operate and maintain assets and really drive an optimization of value through those assets. So just in summary, I think we'll probably have around 10 minutes for questions at the end, so running on time. I would say there are really 5 things that we need to look at. So it's important that, to drive agility and resilience through a structured transformation, we need to have a compelling vision that not only aligns our current workforce, but also those new ecosystem partners that we so need in order to drive those new value propositions. We need a phased digital transformation roadmap. So we need to know what value we can deliver at what stages in that roadmap. Now for us, that's a multi-year, 12-year roadmap. Obviously, it's less certain as you go to the right-hand side, but it's having that structured approach, those horizons that you can hit in terms of that transformation. I would say as important as looking at new business models, it's how we stress test our current business models for resiliency and agility. It might be that actually there's a small pivoting of those existing business models that could reap huge benefits. It could be just through the automation of a simple process could drive a whole lot more value through the organization, and also the value through which you can offer clients. I would also outline or recommend that you look both internally and externally for those new business models and innovation that drive new value creation. So in our, for example, using us again, it's that collaboration with Techstars where we've gone external for innovation, but also set about a culture of internal innovation and really motivating people and incentivizing them to bring forward their ideas into our organization. And then lastly, it's about people. You can't achieve any of this unless you motivate those individuals, unless you can align them around a vision. It's also taking a look back, looking at the skills that we're going to need in the future and how we can motivate and attract those individuals into our industry, which is something that we're finding obviously incredibly difficult right now, but there are measures that we can employ moving forward. So I hope that's been reasonably informative. I'm aware that obviously would have preferred to have done it face to face with you guys and interacted with you more on a peer-to-peer type level. But if there are any questions, please feel free to come forward. Hibba, I'm not sure if you're still there. If you want to maybe say a piece about motivating. Okay. Whether you want to say a piece around encouraging people to come forward with some questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
So yes, I'm trying to open the questions to see how many we have there.
I am too, actually.
So they're asking, what is the motivation to participate in the innovation program?
That's a very good question, actually. Yeah. So the internal innovation program. It's really, how do you recognize those individuals? And there's various different ways you can do that. The obvious one is to remunerate them, but I think that's too easy. in a lot of instances. I think the way that we're beginning to look at how we incentivize individuals to come forward is to reward them with the due focus and support for their particular idea, and giving them all the tools and the techniques and the training that's necessary in order to drive and to gain traction for that value proposition. Now, for someone who's quite young and junior in an organization, that might give them the opportunity to actually give them some client interaction experience, or to give them some design thinking training experience. Now, for a young person who's very aware of evolved skill sets and how they need to make themselves resilient in an ever evolving world and industry, that's incredibly important to that individual. And that's, we're seeing a really strong motive for individuals to come forward with ideas purely in order to do that. So that's one example, I guess. But thank you for the question. That's very relevant question.
They're asking if you will be sharing the slides.
Yes, I believe I can. I might have to redact some of the information, but yes, I'll be able to share the slides.
Okay. I just wanted to say that this session is recorded, and you will receive the recording of the session. Just to recap over what Tim has said. Let's see if there are some more questions.
Sorry, Hib, I'm not getting the questions for some reason. So
yeah. So there's a question from Abdullah. He's asking, how often do you revise the business model canvas?
I mean, to be honest, you need to be continually revisiting it, due to the rate at which there's change within the economy and the disruptions to your industry. I would suggest that for a new value proposition, you probably need to be revisiting that at least on a monthly basis, just to ensure that that's evolving in the way that you need it to. But one of the key elements of the business model thinking, as I outlined, was adaptability. And I think you need probably a core function within your business that really focuses on those key trends that are impacting your industry, almost acts as kind of an industry watch, where you begin to better understand how those changes are going to impact your business models, and have that route back into the solutions leads and the individuals within the innovation space.
Right, so there's another question from Pacer. Pacer's asking how to leverage exploration and exploitation in large organizations.
Well, I think the way that we've done it in terms of genuine exploration and reinvestment is to detach that experimental space into a separate business unit with its own P&L. Now, those solutions that we're offering within that new digital business are often higher margin, so we have more opportunity to reinvest those margins back into that particular component of our business model. So that's one way that we've done it. We've also the innovation initiatives that I speak of, those are heavily connected with that new digital business as well. So those best ideas are being looked at and accelerated quicker through the creation of that new digital business unit. So that's one way that we've done it.
Right. So maybe we have a few minutes to take a few more questions. So sure. If anyone has a question, please type it in.
Well, I hope that presentation was reasonably relevant. I think with what's going on at the moment, as I said, it is I think agility and resiliency is kind of key on the corporate agenda at the moment, and how we really position our businesses, and how we really begin to audit our business models, and how we can offer something new and maybe pivot those existing solutions. Hopefully that gives a bit of a flavour as to the way that we've done it at Arcadis.
Well, thank you so much, Tim.
No
I believe there are no questions anymore. So if you have any questions and you would like to reach out to Tim, you can email me, or I don't know if you want to share your email address or contact details, but you can email me and I will be willing to share that with you.
Yeah, sure. Or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. You should be able to find me quite easily. Feel free to drop me a message. Yeah, and happy to connect and continue the conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the session, Tim. Thank you so much for answering the questions. It's a pleasure to have you, and thank you all for taking this time to log in and to listen to the webinar. And we'll be willing to answer all your questions. Tim is happy to connect with you. So let's stay connected. So thank you all, and I wish you all a very good evening. And thank you, Tim, for your time and for the presentation.
No
and we'll be in touch shortly. Hopefully, we'll hold another session face-to-face once all this is really sorted out.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. And you will receive a recording of this session hopefully tomorrow.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.